Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at CinemaBlend, back with another analysis video for the new Disney Plus and Marvel show, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We are up to episode number 2. If you missed our breakdown of the premiere episode, make sure you go back and check it out here on our channel. We are going to be diving into spoilers and breaking down everything that we saw in episode number 2, which is called Star-Spangled Man. There's a lot of stuff to get to, so we're going to dive right in with our main topics. Of course, before we do that, make sure you go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way, every single time that we drop a new video breaking down a Marvel television show or something that has to do with the entertainment and pop culture universe, you guys won't miss a single minute of it. Okay, I want to get to the two big surprises that happened over the course of this episode, and both of them have to do with Captain America, a character whose legacy casts its shadow very large over this entire show. And so we met Captain America as both new and old in this episode, one of them being a tremendous surprise. So I want to start with John Walker, who we meet at the very beginning of the episode. We got a brief glimpse of him at the end of the premiere episode, and now we're getting to find out who John Walker is, played by Wyatt Russell. And this is a very complicated character. What I love about the Marvel shows so far, and really we have WandaVision and then this one to talk about, is that they tend to ask a very easy question and then get lost in the complexities of exploring that question. So for WandaVision, it was, how does a superhero, particularly one as superpowered as Wanda, handle grief? We don't get to dwell on grief in the superhero stories all that often. It's usually on to the next battle. The question that appears to be being asked on the surface of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, who is worthy to wield the shield? It's a big question, and it's a big question that Sam wasn't ready to answer just yet. But so far, we've seen Bucky and Sam, and now John Walker, wrestling with who is worthy of picking up this mantle and being the next Captain America. And so we learn about John Walker. He's a football star. He is a military hero who has collected numerous badges for his heroic actions. He has apparently tested off the charts in all the different places where you can as a soldier. Intelligence, physicality. He claims that he himself has guts, but he admits he has big shoes to fill. So his journey to becoming Captain America is so very different than Steve's, although, you know, he's going to shoulder the burden of comparison around every corner, is because there are these expectations that come with being Captain America that Steve Rogers never had to face. Like, he's the one who defined those expectations, and it's his legacy that everybody who tries to be a version of Captain America after the fact is going to have to live up to. He doesn't really have powers. He's not a super soldier in the way that other characters in this episode are absolutely super soldiers. He's just a brave soldier who seems to be really good in combat, as we saw during that fantastic fight sequence that went from truck to truck. Kind of lived up to the aerial sequence that was launched, the series in the beginning of episode 1. That was a phenomenal fight choreography, fight sequence, and this one on the trucks really expanded on it. But, you know, all of that is sort of window dressing to the larger question of, did Sam make the right decision? We're going to get to that in our next category, because Sam's decision is obviously the weight that's driving this series forward. But before we do that, I really want to get to Isaiah. Isaiah Bradley is a character who was introduced in the Marvel Comics, and when Bucky brings Sam to go meet him in Baltimore, this is a corner of the universe that I had no clue we were going to explore, especially not so soon over the course of this show. And it shows how much freedom and flexibility that the longer form television series are giving the Marvel Cinematic Universe to explore characters that are integral to the rich history that's in the comics, but you never thought you'd get to see these characters in live action. So Isaiah Bradley was a Captain America. He was a version of the super soldier who filled in some of the gaps in history when Steve Rogers was frozen on ice. And you get a hint of that when he talks about the fight that he and Bucky had on the South Korean peninsula. Just a phenomenal way to reference that, like, Bucky's been around forever. When he was an agent of Hydra, he was a problem, and that the government tried to deal with different ways to take him down. And one of these ways was Isaiah Bradley, who had the powers of the super soldier serum. And that's phenomenal. Like, Sam is upset. How come nobody told me that there was another Captain America, that there was a black Captain America who, you know, could have been in the spotlight? And you start to learn about the treatment that Isaiah got from his own government after he fought in that battle against Bucky. He says he was imprisoned for 30 years. He said that he was experimented on. He said that Hydra was even still working on him. So it goes to show that the people who were in the super soldier serum didn't have the same character arc that Steve did. And what you begin to ask why. First off, you ask why.
Is it because I'm black and I'm the Falcon?
Secondly, you probably ask yourself, how many others are there? How many more were there who got to, you know, wear a version of the shield, and why were they kept off the radar? How come they weren't celebrated the way that Steve Rogers is? And I think that this show, as it begins to explore the idea of who is Captain America, what is Captain America, who is worthy of wearing that name, the name of Captain America. Like, Sam was supposed to take it. Sam was supposed to get it from Steve. Steve picked him for a reason. Bucky realizes, because of probably, now that we know the number of different Captain Americas that he might have fought over the years after Steve, he's obviously has a vested interest in who holds this shield and who bears the shield. And in fact, at one point he says to Sam, let's go take the shield back. Let's take this back and do it ourselves because we're the ones who deserve to do it. And then, of course, everything that we're doing with John Walker about whether he's the right guy to hold the shield or not. I don't know what to make of John Walker yet. He has a checkered history in the comic books, and I'm waiting to see how this show paints him, whether he's a clear-cut good guy, clear-cut bad guy, or whether we're even going to get clear-cut good guys and clear-cut bad guys in this show. It seems like it's going to be a lot of gray area. I want to believe in him. The way that they set him up at the beginning of the episode, like, he feels like he's a good guy who is working toward doing the right thing. He says to his partner, essentially, like, I just want to do the job. And this is what the job is. The job is being this symbol because America kind of needs it right now. He's trying to partner with Bucky and Sam, and Bucky and Sam, of course, are hesitant for reasons that we totally understand, like emotional reasons that have been built up over the years that he can't quite possibly understand. But should they give him a fair shake? It seems like Sam wanted to, more than Bucky did, necessarily. But I'm not quite sure that I'm willing to wholeheartedly put my trust into John Walker just yet, despite his ability to try to step into the shoes of Steve Rogers. I thought him showing up at the truck fight was great. That was one of the most heroic moments in this series so far. Granted, we've only had two. And so far it's been very, very character driven, but him showing up, like when the shield came flying in to knock that flag smasher soldier off the truck, I kind of pumped my fist and cheered. I thought that was really great. Let's get to section number 2, which is Sam's decision. In the beginning of the series, in the first episode, it seems like a relatively small decision. You know, Steve gives him the shield. He admits that it doesn't feel like it belongs to him. He can't get over the fact that it's Steve's shield. But from the moment he makes the decision to turn the shield over, he's getting flack from Rhodey, who's saying, why didn't you take up the mantle? He eventually gets flack from Bucky, saying, that was yours, Steve chose you. Then he takes it one step further. When Bucky takes it one step further and says, if Steve was wrong about you, meaning that you're not worthy to hold it, then maybe he's been wrong about me the whole time. And you kind of understand, and while the therapist is a gimmick, a little bit of a bit, it at least allowed us to tear down that wall that Bucky's feeling, because, again, this legacy of Steve is just hanging over both of these men as they try to move themselves forward. And are they worthy of all of the praise and support that Steve gave both of them over the years? So Steve was, he had undying loyalty and faith to Bucky, and he had a lot of faith and loyalty to Sam, you know, over the years, and in fact to trust him with the shield. And there was a moment in going back through and rewatching the episode when Isaiah is talking to Bucky, but he says something that absolutely resonates with Sam. When Bucky says, I'm not a killer anymore, and Isaiah says,
you think you can wake up one day and decide who you want to be? It doesn't work like that.
But the camera pans over to Sam as he's saying that, to almost say to Sam, like, you don't get to decide whether you get the shield or not. Like, the shield is yours. It was given to you, and you might have said that you don't deserve it or you're not going to hold on to it, but that's not really your decision to make. And when we, you know, so far over the course of 2 episodes, and now it's 2 episodes that in only 6, so the story's going to be moving relatively quickly and we're going to be processing a lot of stuff. Sam's decision to turn that shield over led to all of this. You know, it led to John Walker getting the shield. It led to the birth of a new Captain America. It led to Bucky doubting himself because Sam is doubting himself. So it's a significant decision, but I think Sam is starting to very quickly learn or come to terms with the fact that it's not a decision that he's going to be able to make. He cannot, as Isaiah says, wake up one day and decide who you're going to be or not going to be. And I'm pretty sure that by the end of this series, mark it now, right? March 26th, we're only through episode number 2. I think by the end of this series, you're going to see Sam Wilson as the new Captain America. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's get to enemies as allies and allies as enemies. So the big reveal at the end of episode 2 is that they're on their way to go speak to Zemo. And we knew that Zemo was going to be in this series. Daniel Bruhl had been cast already. We're waiting to find out how he factors in, but so far it looks like they're going to be going to Bruhl because Sam and Bucky are trying to find out how super soldiers are able to be out in the world. And I kind of want to know how many super soldiers are out in the world. Like the introduction of Isaiah and the number of super soldiers that we saw fighting against Bucky, Sam, and John Walker on the tops of the moving trucks means that there are a lot of them out there. So, or more, a lot more than we think. So are they still being injected now? Are they still being amplified? Are they ones that have been around for a really long time? Because this brings us to our other character who we met, which is Carly Morgenthau, who was leading the abduction of these medical supplies or medicines. And we want to know necessarily who she's working for and who's after her. She got that text message saying that you took something that belongs to me and I'm going to kill you. So she's got people that she's after. And Bucky and Sam, in a classic sort of, heroic story trope, they're going to go have to rely on a bad guy in order to help them capture a bigger bad guy. And this is, this is a Silence of the Lambs type thing, right? It's Clarice going to talk to Hannibal in order to get some information about Buffalo Bill. So they'll go talk to Baron Zemo, and they'll try to figure out what they can learn about the Super Soldier program. But here's where I think this is a really interesting, enemies as allies. Clearly, Baron Zemo is an enemy who might be able to help these guys out. But allies as enemies, this is where I sort of fall into is John Walker the new Captain America, who might eventually become U.S. agent, is the new Captain America a true ally? Or is he an enemy? Is he somebody who's going to be standing in Bucky and Sam's way along the lines? Sam has some sort of a line of dialogue where he hints that, you guys are bound by too many regulations. We're freelancers. We're going to be able to move quicker than you are. You got a lot of red tape you have to go through. You are the government, as you say. And I don't know how accurate that is, too. But in a way, John Walker's adherence to the government and the rules that might separate him from the type of Captain America that Steve was, because Steve was not afraid to break the rules, which led to the Sokovia Accords and his troubles in Captain America Civil War. Now, have the characters learned something from that? I think they absolutely have, and I think that there is definitely a bigger bad at play here, and it could be Zemo, and Zemo could be the one who's manipulating the Flag Smashers. I'm not opposed to thinking that that's necessarily the case. Obviously, one of the things that Zemo does, even from a prison, is pulls strings and manipulates people behind the scenes and gets them to work against each other. So far we have a lot of established parties, whether it be the team of Bucky and Sam, whether it be the Flag Smashers, whether it be Captain America and his new sidekick. These are all factors that they could be working for each other and they could be working toward a common goal, but they very easily, with a push in one direction, could very easily be working against each other. And that feels like a lot of stuff that Zemo would do. So let's see if he ends up being the big bad, if he is the enemy who's going to act as an ally in episode number 3, or if he's going to be a true enemy all the time who disrupts all the allies. So the introduction of the GRC, the Global Repatriation Council, there's something interesting about the Flag Smashers about how their theory tends to be that they preferred how life was during the blip. And I want them to elaborate more on that, because I don't doubt that society probably operated differently for those 5 years. That's a significant 5-year period where half of the world's population was gone. And we haven't heard in the MCU whether Thanos's philosophy that the world would work better with half the population gone was accurate or not. This is the first sort of glimpse into a political belief system, or a radical sort of belief system, that Thanos's concept was correct and that they kind of want to restore it back to the way things were during the blip. And I think that's a really interesting concept to explore. Clearly, Sam and Bucky want to stand up against these guys and prevent them from accomplishing whatever they're trying to accomplish. But what if what they're trying to accomplish isn't necessarily flawed? It goes back to the point that Thanos might not have been wrong, right? Thanos might have been onto something. And so now you got these radical groups who are rising back up and trying to restore order back to and take power away from the people who are rising up after the fact that once the blip people returned. A lot to process. There's a whole lot going on. Also, I heard a mention of the Power Broker. That might have gone over my head, but I'm not quite sure who the Power Broker is. So if you know who the Power Broker is, or you heard that line that the Power Broker's men are the ones who are coming, head to the comments down below and let me know what you think. I'm going to have to go back through and watch this episode at least 2 or 3 more times just to sort of figure out all that's happening. It's really great that it's been like an information dump, but really in a way that it's parceled out to fuel all of the character arcs forward while still giving us some really exciting action and taking place in all the stuff that was relevant to the MCU. Like, it's fun to hear John Walker talk about the legacy of Steve Rogers, and it's fun to see him in action alongside Bucky and Sam, and have Bucky and Sam resent him being the new Captain America and having the legacy of this character and his shadow hanging over this show. So all of this so far has been truly great. Way different than what we saw in WandaVision, which was a limited sort of contained story to this one area that still had a lot of layers that played out to it. This is more of a global hopscotching espionage thriller, and that's what you'd want from something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we'll be back. We'll be back next week, breaking down episode number 3. We'll be at the halfway mark of the season already. Like, this is moving very quickly with some really fascinating things. What plot thread are you most intrigued about? I want to hear from you guys, so head to the comments down below. Let me know what you think about how this episode played out and what you want to see the show really explore more as it moves forward. While you're here, of course, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and as soon as we drop the next analysis episode for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you guys will be the very first ones to hear about it.